I can guarantee you that this is not going to be one of those AI generated videos that is sites that you already know of. No, these are websites that I have uncovered in the past year of game development that are kind of unknown to the most degree. Like I said, you probably aren't gonna know them, but that I think can be super helpful, super meaningful for just making better games. They can be very simple, they can add some cool features, or they can help with making some critical parts of your game's development a lot easier. So without further ado, let's jump into the first one. It's called Steam Sale. Steam Sale is short for Steam Sentiment Analysis or something. Basically, you have a game similar to yours. Let's say you're making an automation game and you want to take a look at what are some other games in the genre doing and what are they more specifically doing bad? What is something that you can take into account for your own games that you're making to not make that same mistake? Now you can read all of the reviews for these games, you can play it yourself, but these things take quite a bit of time. But if you want to get more of a zoomed out high-level approach to what is good and bad about a certain game, just putting the Steam store page URL into Steam Sale gives you a quick short summary of what are the things that people generally like about the game and what are the things that they don't like about the game based on reviews. It's a very easy thing. You compare this with like a few games in your genre and you can already quickly spot some patterns of, hey, a lot of these games they have bad UI, or a lot of these games are riddled with bugs. So let me now, for the game that you're gonna be making, not make those same mistakes. It's a free tool and it's very easy to use, so really just plop in the competition, I would say, and give it a go for yourself. Now, speaking of similar games, this is also something that you're most likely going to be doing when creating influencer marketing outreach. It is the golden standard, in my opinion, for marketing your game is by reaching out to other content creators who play games similar to yours, for example, sending them keys and all of that. I've made a bunch of videos about it, you can check out up there. But how do you find these content creators? And there are a few good sites for that, and one of them is actually made by one of our viewers, so I'm pretty sure you don't know about it yet, and it's called whoplays.games. And what you do here is it's a completely free alternative to browsing for games similar to yours, what content creators make it, and it's very easy to then create a list of, hey, these are all content creators that I should reach out to for my own game as well. It's completely free. All you need to do is submit your own YouTube API key, but it's very easy to get and it's completely for free as well, just so that you don't hit like rate limits and all of that. What you then do is you just give in the name of a game that you're competing with. So for example, when we were looking for content creators for Overtime Anomaly, we looked at people who covered games like Order 13, Dollmare, Cabin Factory and all of that. And then you just get a list showing some of the top content creators for that. And it's a much more efficient way than simply going into YouTube and then in the search bar typing the name of your game and then having to just scroll down until the end of time. It gives you stats like, hey, audience sizes, view sizes and all of that. It's a really good way to then take those content creators and then put them in your list or whatever that you track and reach out to them. A follow-up second like sub URL, and this is one that you maybe know already, is Sully Gnome. Whilst whoplays.games is really focused on YouTube, and it's what I personally prefer more as the social media platform, there's a lot of games that also thrive on Twitch still for more of the live streaming focus. Sully Gnome gives you super in-depth data for content creators on Twitch, because Twitch just has way more open APIs. You can see which content creators played your games, what were their peak viewers, highest viewers, languages, and all of that, basically how many streams that they do. And then once again, from there on, you can very easily create that list of who are some potential content creators who can cover my game, and then find ways to contact them and reach out to them. So you can get, once again, more wishlists hopefully, or more sales for your game. Next up is a site that once again I started using when I was working on Overtime Anomaly, and that's called Steam Review Alert. So Steam Review Alert kind of takes that panic mode after you've released a game, or even before a game, where you're just refreshing your Steam store page to see, are there any new reviews, are there people who put new discussions on like the community discussions forums, and most of the time maybe there's nothing, but you want to know the moment that something hits, the moment that there's a review you want to see, do people like the game? Is there something that I need to address? Is there something we can do here? Or is there a Steam community discussion question, for example? Realistically, you can't do that for months on end, just refreshing every 2 hours. So this is where Steam Review Alert comes in, because it gives you a digest of, this is how many new reviews you got, this is how many new community posts were created and all of that, and it just sends you an email whenever it has happened. If nothing happened, well, no need to worry about it. They have a free tier as well, which gives you 1 update a day, which I think is fine for most of the cases. And you can increase it as well if you want more games or you want faster updates whenever there is a new review post and all that. It's a very easy tool to use, super easy to get started with. And it's one of those things that just makes the entire experience, especially launching a game, which I know from experience can be super stressful because it's like, ooh, when am I going to get that first review? Are people going to like the game and all of that? It is something that is kind of helpful when dealing with that whole launch period process because your brain is going to be everywhere basically. And speaking of those Steam pages and all of that, that brings me to another site that I actually made myself. I know, wow, SteamTagHelper.com. Because I've noticed when I do Steam page reviews and all of that, that you don't always have a good idea of how do I correctly set up tags for my Steam page. It can be kind of overwhelming because suddenly Steam asks you for between 5 and 20 tags describing your game. It's like, what should I put into it? Does it matter? And the answer is yes, it matters, because this is what Steam uses to help with discoverability and visibility of your game. If Steam doesn't know what games your game is similar to, it won't be able to correctly suggest your game to other players. And the way that we used to do this ourselves, and that I used to do it, was the way that Crisostomo describes it from How to Make a Steam Page. Basically, you take 3 of the games that are similar to yours in like the same genre or whatever. So for example, for Unicycle Pizza Time, we looked at games like Chained Together, Only Up, and all of that. And then you just copy paste all of their tags and you put them next to each other in a spreadsheet. And then you just look at the tags, the 3 columns you have, and it's like, which ones do I think that I will be using as well? Which ones do they seem to all have in common? This is just a wildly inefficient process though, I noticed. So I threw together this website. You give 3 Steam page URLs and then optionally your own 4th Steam page URL as well. And it will suggest you like, hey, these are the tags that all of these games have in common. These are some tags that you may want to consider adding to your game as well. It gives you that similar like visual overview as well. And it just warns you plain up if you're kind of making a mistake somewhere, like not having the full 20 tags configured on your game, because you always want to have as many tags as possible. So this is a very quick and easy website, but it is something that does make that point of correctly tagging your Steam page a lot easier. So I don't want to see any of you guys submit Steam pages for review anymore that just don't have the full 20 tags. 20 tags is so important. I'm going to keep hammering on it. Get those 20 tags. It's going to be worth it for getting as much out of the discoverability that you can, basically. And now these next 2 sites are both localization based, because localization is one thing. There's a lot of ways you can do it. If you have simple games where it's mainly UI, you can use resources like Polyglot GameDev. I've talked about that in a previous video similar to this, which is a giant list of, generic terms for your game, like UI terms and all of that, or simple enemy terms, but probably you're going to have custom dialogue, or you're going to have something else custom in your game that you can't find in that Polyglot GameDev sheet. And localizing your game, guys, it's so important because over half of Steam right now is China alone. So by not localizing to Chinese, for example, you're immediately going to be missing out on 50% of the global Steam audience, which is nuts, basically. You want to localize in as many languages as possible, and the question is how, because chances are you're not an 11-language polyglot who can localize their game themselves. And there's a variety of options. You can throw it in things like ChatGPT as well. The problem then is that sometimes, especially when doing narrative games, for example, a lot of context gets lost and the grammar structure just isn't really there. So this is where a site like Localize Direct comes in, because we've used Fiverr as well for localization, but it's just, let me be honest, it's pain and misery, and you don't have a guarantee that the other people that you're paying for basically aren't just going to throw it through ChatGPT as well. We've done that before. We got our store pages localized in like specific languages, and then people came to us and was like, yeah, this still sounds like an AI generated language, which just wastes money. What I like about Localize Direct, and this is not like a sponsor, this is literally just a site that I found and that I think is super useful, is you just upload a CSV file with all of your keys, all of your strings that you want to localize, and it instantly gives you the price. It's based on word count. You pay between 10 and 12 cents usually per word. And then it tells you if you want to have these languages, it's going to cost you this much. And this transparency, honestly, is what I love so much, because don't get me wrong, it's not going to be super cheap. Absolutely. But if you want to have it, and you want to have it done by real people with a focus on actual game localization, because that's a problem you also see on Fiverr. It's people who maybe don't play games, who don't understand how do games work, how does UI work and all of that. These people at Localize Direct, generally they know what they're doing because they do focus mainly on gaming localizations, and that ease of use, I like it as well. Now, if this is out of budget, and you don't have dedicated money for getting localization, that brings you to the second site, which is Localizer, which is a much cheaper alternative to crowdsourcing your localizations and your game strings, because this allows you to ask people in your audience, assuming you have an audience, or just your friends, I guess, to come and help localize your game to a variety of different languages. And you pay, I think, $20 or something a month. The first month is free, and you upload all of your keys, and then you can just get people to fill in certain languages. There's a whole bunch of games on there that you can see like, hey, how does this work from a translator's perspective as well? And whilst you may not get that same professional quality level by just asking people in your audience, for example, it is still a really good way to get localizations for a fraction of the cost compared to professional full-on localization. And usually it's still a pretty good result, especially if you can do it by people who are diehard fans of your game, who speak the language natively and who also understand English. That is generally also a pretty good win. And then this last page that I found, I'm leaving this at the end because this is more of a cute thing than a really super high business value level thing, is Pathcrafter. You know, when you want to add controller support to your game, but it's like, how do I make this visually clear to either myself when you're brainstorming, like, hey, how should my control scheme be? Or to other players, like how can I get that nice graph that shows the control schemes? Well, Pathcrafter is probably going to be the side of you. I've talked about the Game UI database before. This is actually made by that same developer, and it gives you a really easy way to quickly create layouts for PlayStation, Xbox, or other kinds of controllers and share them. You can export them as like PNG images, for example. It's something that we did when we made a post for Overtime Anomaly of like, hey, we have controller support, we have Steam Deck support. This is how the game controller layout is. I made that graphic in, I would say, less than 10 minutes by just putting in the values onto the site and then exporting the image and then just putting it on there. It's a really easy and fun tool, and it gives you that option to also not just have to look at a controller and then try to visualize, which button should be my run, because you can look at similar games, but maybe your game still has a bit of a different controller layout. I think that is a very nice to have site as well, very easy to get started with, to give you an idea of this is what my controller layout would be, these are the buttons that I'm going to have. And those were the sites that I've been encountering over the past year that I think are really valuable. So let me know, how many of these did you know, and did I miss any other like kind of on the download websites that do help you with game development? I'm always looking for more, so if you know any, leave a comment down below, and yeah, let me know how many of these did you know, and also let me know the thoughts that you have from some of these sites, because things like whoplays.games and Steam Review Checker are made by our community, and it's just also indie developers trying to help other indie developers. So if you have any feedback for them, I'm pretty sure that they would also appreciate it if you could share that with them. So that's all I need to say. Thank you very much for watching. We upload videos on this channel talking about the things that we've been learning along the way with making our own games. If that's something that you're interested in, be sure to head down below and subscribe, because you'll be notified the moment we upload a new video. So that's all I need to say. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!